Thank you. Thank you very much for introducing me. And I also would like to thank the organizers of this excellent event and an invitation to speak on the International Symposium on Cultural Diplomacy. I'm especially pleased to speak on this topic here in Bulgarian Embassy because we have a centuries-old history, even being distant from each other. We have a centuries-long history of relations with Bulgarian people, with Bulgaria. I even may say the history of our relations, the history of interaction, cultural interaction, whatever, in different spheres, goes back maybe not even centuries, goes back even millennia to those, let us say, nations on the basis of which our present, let us say, ethnic groups were formed: Bulgarians nation, Kazakh nation. We share common history in the past when huge hordes from middle of Eurasia, from Great Steppe of Central Asia, were moving westbound before Christ, in times before Christ, with Hanas Paruch, one of the greatest founders of Bulgarian kingdom, or maybe even earlier with maybe Attila, who moved to Europe, and with which all this made us interconnected to a very great extent. And with this, I may say that learning about each other and sharing and understanding each other's way of thinking, beliefs, which is usually religion, is two major things which we believe cultural diplomacy implies. Because education and interfaith dialogue is very important. I may say that education, it is a tool which allows nations, different nations, and it is very much important for nations like mine, a young nation. I mean, we have only 22 years of our independence, of modern history. Day and night, everyday efforts, hard efforts, and constant flow of investments of your efforts and finances, definitely. For instance, we have established a scholarship program. Every country has a scholarship programs, different scholarship programs, to provide their best students to study in best universities all over the world. The same story with Kazakhstan. We started it in early 90s with a very moderate scholarship program of about 100 scholarships per year. Then we continued it and expanded it to, for instance, a couple of thousand scholarships per year. And we call it Bolashak, the future, which is translated as the future. We invest and we send young boys and girls abroad to the best universities all over the world, mainly in Europe and United States. Right now we have 5,000 students at the moment under this program, and we have even 3 times more, 15,000, which are studying under non-governmental programs, also Kazakhstan programs, but private funds, corporate funds, or individual funds, etc., etc. Because this is we see it not only just an investment in better education, in better skills, which is one of the primary goals, but this is an investment in people, in new generation of people with different mindset, which will fit those laws and constitution which we adopted. But to adopt a law and a constitution, it's just a formality. You need to fill it with practicalities, everyday practicality, from where you can talk about rule of law, good governance, etc., and all these new corporate instincts, new corporate environment. What they bring back from their studies is understanding and acceptance and skills of these rules, new instincts of corporate law, of good governance, rule of law, and all other best things, along with high quality education in specific areas. And for these 20 years, 22 years, many of these young guys who are now in their middle ages, I mean in their 30s, maybe someone already, not 40s, but at least 30s. But they're reaching good positions, both in government, both in corporate sector, private sector, whatever. Because while investing heavily, because it requires a lot of money, definitely. It requires tuition, whatever, lodging, boarding, pocket money, and even this money, because people traveling for 3, 4, or 5 years abroad, some of them are married. These funds are necessary. They should also cover their at least minimal requirements to travel with their families, because they cannot separate from their families for such a long period. But so it requires a lot of money, but statistics, just simply statistics, shows that returns are very high. One could expect it that, for instance, they run away, migrate after they get good education, living abroad and getting accustomed to different type of living and standards of living. But they are coming back, over 90%, 95, even over 95% coming back, and this is very encouraging, because this shows how they enthusiastic about this, how they are enthusiastic about contributing to their contributing back to improve everyday life at all levels in every sphere. And by the way, the conditions are very simple. There are definitely, it's not a loan, it's not a credit, it's a kind of a financial commitment, but when they come back, they have only one obligation: to work for 3 years, not necessarily for government. It could be a public sector, it could be private company, it could be even joint venture or foreign company, but which works in Kazakhstan and works for Kazakhstan. This is a simple rule. After 3 years, they don't owe anything to the government, which paid their 3, 4, or 5 years study abroad. So these a very heavy financial burden, but it's worse. And as one of the famous poets of Kazakhstan, contemporary Kazakhstan, and ambassadors, our ambassador to UNESCO, and he was a founder of the famous Nevada Sympalatinsk movement to shut down nuclear test sites. Suleimanov, he said, every person who goes abroad, who travels abroad, is an ambassador of its nation. He brings something with him or herself, and he learns a lot and brings something back. So every person who travels, and this is particularly true for these young boys and girls, for students who are traveling abroad, representing their countries, and coming back representing or introducing the world to Kazakhstan. So that's why this is we consider education and investing in human capital is one of the most important elements of cultural diplomacy as we see it. So, of course, this is a very kind of happy picture which I draw. Definitely there are different hardships, different maybe kind of things which does not work, but we learn. We learn. We already running this program for 20 years, and we learn from even mistakes. Sometimes we do, and we learn in a good way, I believe. Only one generation grew up after the independence. We've got independence, and this generation is free of different those multiple, let us say, cliches, which are still present in, for instance, in my generation, or those who are older. And this is a very big hope that this generation will come and will bring and will introduce on everyday life all these new instincts and mindsets. We need one more generation, 20 years. So the first generation to become mature enough to hold really key positions in the country. This is what we call an evolutionary way of development. Another aspect is of cultural diplomacy is interfaith dialogue. Kazakhstan, although we are not a big, in terms of population, we are not a big nation. We just 17 million people. We've been 15 million after independence in early 90s. Now we are 17 million. But we are very diverse, as many countries in the world, of course. Look, in the United States, really a very diverse country, ethnically, racially, religiously, whatever. You can find anyone, almost anyone from all over the world. So this is also, to a certain extent, is very true for Kazakhstan. We've been even called, during, let us say, communist time, we even been called a kind of a lab, interethnic lab of the Soviet Union. So this was due to different happenings, different moments in the history of our country. Some of them, of course, unfortunate, when we've been kind of a place of where, you all know about gulags, yeah? Those prisons, huge prisons, political prisons, gulags, in, let us say, in 30s, 1930s, 1940s, whatever. Then some of them were located in Siberia, but many of them were located in Kazakhstan. And a lot of people were sent to Kazakhstan, either to gulags or just they were resettled forcefully. People from Europe, from Asia, whatever. For instance, we have, for a 15 million nation in early 90s, we had a 1 million German community, which is a pretty big figure, a German descendants community. We had a pretty big Polish community. We had a visible, and we still have both of these communities. We have the sizable Korean community. Definitely all those ethnic groups which inhabit the former Soviet Union are represented in Kazakhstan. And that was considered by many analysts in early 90s as a weak point of my country. And really, yes, we were one of the poorest countries, one of the poorest parts of the Soviet Union. We've been always been givers, not receivers, let us say. We were donors, not recipients of central budget, that time, central budget of the Soviet Union. Kind of mineral resources. We are rich in mineral resources, and that was true during Soviet time. We were given more, much more, times more than we were receiving. And at the same time, so that situation was both a challenge as well as an opportunity. Because as I made a reference to old time, centuries experience of coexisting with different, or considering any stranger, we considered, people of great step considered any stranger as a valuable asset, as a source of new information, as a source of new knowledge, as a potential friend. The same way, it is a traditional way of behavior, of way of interacting with any stranger. It helps us to survive even in the times of hardships. As previous speakers discussed a lot of different things, previous speaker was really excellent, and I just enjoyed listening to him. And there was some there was a question by one gentleman behind me, I didn't see, about looking through different glasses on the same. Yes, we've always been very curious and trying to look through every possible glass on the same thing. We've been really interested how other people perceive the same thing which we see in some maybe different light. And that's why religious we understand that in other countries, for instance, religious tolerance or religious rights, it is something you should fight for. In our part of the world, we never fought for when we're talking about relations between different religions, between different denominations. We realized that, yes, okay, they pray differently, but it's there. Maybe it goes back to those rules written by Genghis Khan when we were the part of that big empire, when he introduced the rules. By the way, one of the most religiously tolerant set of rules, the rules of Genghis Khan Empire, by the way. He never even, it was prohibited to impose one religion, let us say, on other people. So, and definitely interreligious peaceful coexistence and an accord was a must. It was a modus, not even vivendi, it was a modus for survival in our part of the world. Otherwise, it is impossible. Maybe also it was easier for us because we were on the crossroads. Before the entire world, human civilization opened seas as routes for trade and travel. The most important routes went through our part of the world, this Silk Route connecting Asia with West. And we were on the crossroads of these routes, and we were absorbing all these knowledges. Many countries were on the way, and we luckily were as well on the way of this Silk Route. And we were learning a lot of things, we were absorbing a lot of things, and again, as I said, due to maybe we were small in numbers, but it made us very curious and very friendly, looking to any stranger, meeting any stranger. So that is why religions, it is something which we take care every day and every night. We believe that ensuring interethnic accord, as well as interreligious accord, interreligious as well as interethnic accord, is a must and a prerequisite for any successful developments in a society. That's why we managed to survive those 90s, which were very violent for many other countries. after the collapse of Soviet Union, communist system, etc., etc. We managed to survive, and we managed to strengthen. Yes, this is also a part of national security. We managed to strengthen, but this is also that part of national security which you strengthen not with hardware, but with the software. It is a soft power. It is a cultural power. It's a cultural diplomacy, people-to-people diplomacy. And it especially became very relevant after 9/11. After 9/11, we have responded to this by convening and calling convening a Congress of leaders of world religions, leaders of world religions. That was kind of a very specific initiative apart from any other initiative under UN aegis or any other organization or organization aegis. We were not convening, calling government, bureaucrats or diplomats to get together and to talk about religions, to talk about freedom of religions, to talk about disputes, differences, and ways to overcome these disputes. We invited clerics. We believe that it is their business in first instance to discuss this. And we even constructed a beautiful building. By the way, a famous UK architect, Norman Foster, has constructed a building in the form of pyramid, partially made of glass. He's famous for glass constructions, like a cupola over German Parliament in Berlin. This Norman Foster's creation. So he made a lot of in our capital, also glass and steel and whatever. And we called it the Palace of Peace and Accord. And we gave it to the leaders of world religions which get together every few years in Kazakhstan. We have hosted already 4 congresses, and next year we are going to host 1 more congress. These are 2 pillars which we strongly believe are the pillars for cultural diplomacy. And we are very glad to see that many countries in the world share the same. A previous speaker was talking about values, and this is very important thing. And definitely, as I mentioned, as I made a reference, that many nations look through their own glasses to the same values. So this is what the message we would like to, we want to generate and to understand, everyone to understand that yes, we share the same values, but even looking through different glasses on the same values, we should try first not to argue but to understand each other's position. And even if through this understanding we may realize that yes, maybe we are doing not so good at the moment. For instance, I may say about my country, we are just 22 years independent in a modern history. There is a lot of things to do, and we are open to discuss all these things, because we realize we are not perfect, but at the same time we realize that there is a lot of things which we can learn from others and do it maybe our own way, in our own speed, and in let us say our own understanding, but still we are open. We are open to listening good advices. Maybe not like the question was why someone dictates someone what to do and how to do. Yes, definitely, nobody likes that. Neither we. But openness for discussions, openness for, let us say, to absorb new knowledge and to maybe to introduce it, to introduce something in your own life, this is a very important point. So I'm afraid I was I talked too much about about my country. So since this is about cultural diplomacy, United States, etc. But I was, as a diplomat of my country, I was availing of this opportunity to let us say, to introduce my country. Please do not look at this as a propaganda. Yes, and don't look at my country as the most perfect in the world. It is beautiful, it is perfect, but we are trying to be even more beautiful, even more perfect. That's why we are not afraid of being advised something, but in any case, we definitely trying to let us say to make up our own our own decision. So what else I can tell? I just can only add that Kazakhstan is open, and for cultural diplomacy, a lot of real importance for promoting cultural diplomacy means openness and transparency. Kazakhstan is always open and transparent to the extent it is possible. We provide, and first and foremost, for those in those spheres which are very dynamic. It is business and tourism, people-to-people contacts, which make this cultural diplomacy easier. We have created the most favorable investment climate in our part of the world. We're in the heart of Eurasia. We're a landlocked country. That's why we need to have better access to the world markets. We have created this. We have attracted a lot of foreign investments. We just recently introduced even more favorable conditions for foreign investments. We are introducing favorable visa conditions for travelers. Just recently, for instance, we have introduced for 1 year, it means just an experiment, for 1 year visa-free for 10 nations, top 10 investors in our economy, including United States, for instance. That is all about this is all about connectivity. Being landlocked country, we would like to turn this disadvantage into advantage of being land-linked country. We are heavily investing and attracting international investments. For instance, international financial institutions investing billions of dollars in road infrastructure in Kazakhstan. We are connecting West China with West Europe. And for instance, if a container needs up to 45 days to travel from China to Western Europe, with this new Silk Road, which is being constructed through Kazakhstan, it takes 3 times less. You can imagine how economically viable, how economically important this. With this increasing opportunities for businesses, we providing increasing opportunities for people-to-people contacts, for cultural contacts. We are working on different projects, and we are working with our neighbors. Definitely, neighbors are given by God. For countries, for nations, neighbors, you cannot select neighbors. They are given by God. We have 2 great neighbors, Russia and China. We have our neighborhood, Central Asian countries, Afghanistan, Iran, through Caspian Sea. We have Southern Caucasus countries, Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, over the Caspian Sea. But definitely we also would like to have very close relations, and we succeed with more distant partners, European Union, United States, and connectivity, transportation, visa facilitation, any other things. mutual visits, very important in this case. So these are areas we are heavily investing, and that what we call a multi-vector foreign policy, because we have never put ourselves, and we would not like to put ourselves, and we also ask others not to put ourselves in a situation when we forced to choose sides. This is the worst situation, to choose sides. And this is what stands behind our multi-vector foreign policy. We make friends. We have closed one of the biggest nuclear test sites in the world, one of the biggest in the world, let us say, in early 90s. We have abandoned the 4th largest nuclear arsenal because we believe that the trust, mutual trust, and soft power, diplomacy, cultural diplomacy, comes in the first instance, comes in the first hand, should come. And this proved to be really true, just manifesting itself through this huge inflow of foreign investments, of international organizations, international companies coming to Kazakhstan, investing heavily into Kazakhstan, making our development, let us say, successful, so allowing ourselves to invest more and more every year in our own, let us say, capital, human capital, economic potential, political potential, development, etc., etc., etc. So thank you very much, and I'm open for questions. Thank you. Oh yes, very, very good questions. Afghanistan is very important, if to say just pragmatically from Kazakhstan point of view. It is very important for us. It is very important that Afghanistan becomes stronger, becomes stable, becomes peaceful, and develops its economy, develops its human capital. Because, for instance, you see, we are landlocked. We have excellent transportation routes and connectivity through Russia to the north, through China to the east, even through Caspian Sea to the west, through our Caucasus partners in southern Caucasus. But we are completely lack of access to the world, markets, to the world, whatever, space, through south. And Afghanistan is a quite natural way. That's why from the very beginning we were supporting international efforts in stabilizing Afghanistan. We are a successful country, but not very big economy if comparing to United States, leading European economies. But we still investing into or providing some assistance to Afghanistan in terms of like constructing roads, schools, hospitals. But again, our biggest priority and our biggest focus when we decided with kind of, if comparatively limited resources we can provide, where to invest, we decided it's better to invest in human capital. For instance, we are providing training facilities, training courses, we are co-sponsoring different training programs for Afghan law enforcement officers, border security, anti-narcotics, etc., etc. But this is a general trend. What we consider to be better is to invest in civil students, in different civil areas, engineers, doctors, other agricultural specialists. And we have established a program worth of $50 million to train, to pay scholarships for Afghan students in Kazakhstan in different universities in these civil professions. So, and this program is successful, and we've been inviting others, other partners to invest also in this sphere, in CIS, in Europe, European Union, because we strongly believe that investing in human capital, investing in young Afghans, who will come back then, and bringing new, let us say, mindsets that are striving for peaceful, let us say, creative activities, will pay back. So this is our priority in relations with Afghanistan, and this is one of the programs which we are running. Thank you very much. As I told, this initiative to convene congresses of leaders of world religions serves the purpose not only to learn from others, but also to share the best knowledge, the best practices, that to create a platform where everyone can share the best practices. And this relates not only to this Congress, this relates to any multilateral initiative which Kazakhstan was kind of a founding country. For instance, we are founders of SICA process. It is a conference on interaction and confidence building measures in Asia, which unites 27 countries representing Asian countries, representing maybe one third or 1/4 of population, global population. And you will be amazed to see countries which even do not have diplomatic relations sitting together at one table, discussing together different things and agreeing together on some outcome papers of this conference, especially confidence building measures. Countries which have no diplomatic relations, which have conflicts in the past or have a protracted sleeping conflict in the present with each other and not talking to each other. You can imagine. I just personally was witnessing as two prime ministers of two countries on the peak of tension between these two countries, on the peak of even military tension, which was potentially dangerous from military point of view, got together, shook their hands together. Whatever they discussed, we didn't push them, we didn't intervene them, we just created a favorable conditions for them to feel comfortable. And after that, they came back to their countries and they made statements about further policies towards each other, which diffused the situation. That was a really good investment. So, and there are a lot of other examples where we try to create environment where participants can feel comfortable. For instance, we've been providing our ground for Iran +6 talks, and I don't pretend that Kazakhstan contributed to that. We were not part of the negotiations, but we created good conditions. We talked bilaterally to everyone, but it was their job to finally agree. But why not? If we can provide, if we can create good environment, friendly environment, so nobody is irritated, why not? There people learn from each other. Maybe they learn something from our experience, because in that particular case, we've been telling that, look, we have abandoned the 4th largest nuclear arsenal in the world. And we've got security insurances, we've got billions, tens, hundreds of billions of investments. Why not?